Welcome to A Fortnight on the Isle. I'm your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I am lucky that this video is coming out at all, because at the time of recording this on Thursday, April 9th, I just barely remembered that I needed to do this like last night while I was brushing my teeth. If I had not remembered last night, I would not have had time to actually prepare and make this video for the weekend because of being out of town, basically first thing in the morning tomorrow when I would ordinarily record the videos. So, yeah, that's fun, but as is, I don't really have very much time for this video's production, so I don't want to waste any time. Timestamps are down below for any of the topics that you care about in my bi-weekly update here. Let's start off just like we normally do with the reading, and start off with A Memory of Light by Brandon Sanderson, the finale of Wheel of Time, and surprise, surprise, I somehow read this all in this one fortnight. I did not expect for that to happen, first of all, and second of all, I got it through it in 9 days, so even quicker than just over the last 2 weeks. I straight up just got through all of it in 9 days, and that was really crazy, and I really enjoyed the book. Being somebody who loves climaxes and loves resolutions of books, those two elements combined just generally amount to being my favorite parts of the vast majority of books that I tend to read. A Memory of Light being that, except the entire book being that, because it's wrapping up a 14-book series, is, you know, no small amount of just genuine nonsense, non-stop craziness. It was really enjoyable, but I've spent plenty of time talking about that in videos that are to come on the channel this month, and also stuff that's going to be happening on the channel next month, so I'm just going to leave it off as I really liked A Memory of Light a ton, and I can't wait to talk a little bit more about Wheel of Time stuff in the near future. Any other stuff that I have done reading-wise the last couple of weeks are, I actually got started working on a project for Christopher Rocchio recently. You know, hiring with High Matter Books is meant that I am now getting in on the behind-the-scenes side of things for stuff that Christopher is working on right now. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. It's not exactly like he's been hiding that he's working on his next series, but I am now also doing a little bit of work on his next series to some degrees. So that is very exciting. And the other thing is that I did finally, after honestly way too long, I have started Exodus, the second book of the Old Testament of the Torah. Only a few chapters into that, but you know, that is also something that I've gotten done the last couple weeks. As for what I plan to be reading this fortnight, I originally thought that I was just going to be spending this fortnight finishing A Memory of Light. But since that's already done, what other things am I going to be reading instead? Well, I honestly plan to get through the vast bulk, mostly finishing Exodus this fortnight, but other than that, there's a chance that I start working on Percy Jackson's Greek Heroes here soon as a little bit of a palate cleanser before I get into a couple of other, well, a bunch of buddy reads that I'm going to be doing starting next month, some of which I'll be talking about in one video or another this month. I also am possibly going to start reading The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell this fortnight, after my trip that I'm taking, you know, this weekend after I'm back. I do think I plan to start reading that book if I am feeling up to the pain and emotional torment that I know it is going to inflict upon me. And if I'm not, then I'm probably not going to start reading that. And also there's some supplemental Wheel of Time related stuff that I might spend reading over the next couple of weeks instead. Like there's a snippet of a scene, a part of A Memory of Light that wasn't included in the book for pacing related reasons that is still considered canon, that I want to read. There's an alternate little portion of the book that got cut, and fates of some characters that were changed for the final book. So there's an alternate part of the story called A Fire Within the Ways that I would also like to read. And then there's a couple stuff from, like, you know, way back early in the series. There's the Strike at Shale Goal, and also an additional secondary prologue to Eye of the World that also exists. So there's like 4 pieces of Wheel of Time related writing that I'm also planning to make videos about. So what most likely happens is I read that extra Wheel of Time stuff over the next couple of weeks, and then anything else that I get done over the next couple of weeks beyond that and the work project for Christopher is just kind of bonus. So that's what I've got looking at right now. Not much more to say there. For the bi-weekly gaming, there's not a whole lot to talk about here either. That's because over the last fortnight, I did finally finish playing Ghost of Yotei. Spent, I want to say, around 52 hours in the game in total. Maybe it was just 52 hours after I finished the campaign, because I had a handful of hours afterwards that was, you know, actually finishing all of the 100%. But I did finish the game, so I finished the campaign and honestly really overall liked it. As far as revenge stories go, I mean, if we're going to talk about prominent games in the modern era that tackle that topic, Ghost of Yotei and The Last of Us 2 are the ones that come to my mind, and Ghost of Yotei handles that topic way better than The Last of Us 2 does. And so I actually found the game just really compelling from a story and character writing perspective, or at least more so than I was expecting. And overall enjoyed the gameplay a lot as well. For more specific thoughts, the very end of my final live stream that I did for that game does go into my thoughts on that, on the revenge side of things, as well as how I feel on it compared to Ghost of Tsushima. So, and I will make a video about that at some point in the future as well. I had also planned to finish playing God of War: Sons of Sparta over the previous fortnight. I didn't have time to finish that. So I'm still right in the middle of it. And then Grime 2 also released over the last couple of weeks, which I've been really excited for, and I planned to start playing that immediately and just start plowing through it. But because I'm not done with God of War: Sons of Sparta, and both of these are Metroidvanias, that would be a mistake. And hopefully I can do that this fortnight, but again, we'll kind of see what happens there, because my time that I have for stuff is way more limited now than it used to be. For the bi-weekly cinema, I did actually finally watch The Passion of the Christ like I wanted to. Got a video made for that last week. You can actually go watch that video for, I think it's like 28 minutes long. That was a pretty much off-the-cuff review that I did. Talked about most of the points that I wanted to about my impressions watching that for the very first time recently, and I really liked it. You know, I found it very moving, despite some moments of weirdness now and again. Like I said, watch that review for more in-depth thoughts, but I did have an enjoyable time watching that movie. As far as you can call that enjoyable, I did find it a really good movie for all intents and purposes. As for anything that I plan to watch this fortnight, I'm not going to announce anything for sure because of other projects that I need to get caught up on over the next couple of weeks, a couple of those being video projects that I didn't have time to finish before this fortnight that should have been. My video schedule's been, even with a little bit of cutting, even a couple of the videos that I still had plans have been pushed back a week because of lack of time, so I'm just not going to plan to watch anything. But speaking of videos, the upcoming releases, I have fewer videos to talk about this time than for most of this year thus far. Only a few videos each week as opposed to like 6 of them. So this week I only plan to release videos on the main channel on Tuesday the 14th, where I'll be reviewing Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami, where I try my absolute best, but ultimately fail to explain why I really love that book. It was quite the review, we shall say. And then on Thursday the 16th will be the 3rd diary episode for A Memory of Light, getting all the way up to the last battle. So right about 2/3 of the way through the book at that point. And that is what I'll be covering there. And then on Friday the 17th will be on the 2nd channel, the 3rd episode of the BioShock 2 Let's Play. That's all that I have for this week, however, because a 2nd channel video that I was going to post on Wednesday has to be delayed because I just don't have time to make it. So next week on the main channel, I have 3 videos planned, and then I have hopefully 2 videos planned for the second channel. On Sunday the 19th, a week from today, will be a sort of like, it's technically a bonus episode of the book binge, but it's like more of a general channel update, and that is where I'll actually be properly talking about the announcement and disclaimers associated with my now working for Christopher Rocchio for his company. So that is where I'm going to talk about that is next week. Next Tuesday on the 21st will then be the next book binge episode where I'll talk about starting Discworld by Terry Pratchett, a series that I never really considered reading or never thought that I would come to actually read, but I am starting that this year. In fact, I'm starting it in May, and that is what that video is going to be talking about, is, you know, some of my reservations with the series leading up to this point, how my mind was changed, and what I plan to get through with the series this year. On Wednesday the 22nd, if I have the time to actually get it produced, ought to be my brief review video for Ghost of Yote. That was originally supposed to be coming out this Wednesday. That's when I had that scheduled, but like I said, there was some video stuff that had to get pushed back because I just didn't have time. I haven't written that review yet. I've fallen behind on a lot of review writing related stuff the last couple of weeks. Even if I wrote it while I was gone, I would very much struggle to get that video produced over just 2 days now that I have work that I actually have to do every day. So that isn't going to be this week. It's going to be next week if I have the time. Anyway, on Thursday, the 23rd on the main channel will then be the 4th and final episode of the Wheel of Time Diaries for A Memory of Light specifically. I was thinking that that was going to be 5 episodes, and I would cover the last battle in episode 4 and then the last 100 pages in episode 5. Turns out that the person who told me that it would be difficult to separate the last battle from the last 100 pages was correct, and so I end up talking about the rest of the book in general in that diary. So that will be next Thursday. And then finally, on Friday the 24th, will again be the next episode of the BioShock 2 Let's Play, episode 4 of the series. But overall, just got a little bit less content planned. You know, I originally actually had videos and stuff planned out, videos and streams planned out to take every day of April, just like I did for February and March. I ended up cutting a couple videos from the second channel, or like a video from the second channel each week for the most part, to accommodate for, you know, adjusting circumstances and to cut back on content for burnout related reasons, you know, taking us into this fortnight. Basically, you'll notice that the video output is already a bit lower this fortnight, just as I predicted, but it is even a bit lower than that, and that's because while I had already cut a video each week, I'm having to generally adjust the amount of time that I'm able to spend on certain projects in general. That's why the Ghost of Yote video is delayed and could even be delayed further, and why various other thoughts that I have might get a little bit messy. My content calendar that I have, where I've written down all of my ideas, is just an absolute train wreck at this point. I basically need to get a new one to reschedule what April and May actually look like, now that I'm not doing stuff every day, and now that a bunch of other stuff has been moved around and adjusted in some of those manners. But you know, that's more technical stuff on my side of things, we'll say. As I mentioned before, I simply will be spending the remaining month of April basically just adjusting to what I've got going on, which includes like officially having started the next major work project for Christopher, like I talked about before, and therefore my time being able to be spent on my own reading, gaming, cinema, and therefore content creation related to those things, relatively more limited than it was. What it really comes down to is I've had 9 months of time to really go ham with YouTube, but it's time to back off a little bit now at this point, and to move that back into a YouTube is the side gig type of mindset, like it was, you know, back before this last summer when I needed to quit the job that I was working at the time. Now that I have a job again, YouTube is the side gig again, especially since, you know, I don't make money on any of this. So, but with all that being said, I really need to go. I need to get this video edited, and then it is straight to packing for the trip that I'm doing over the weekend. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next update. I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC. Thank you for checking out this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.